Hello everybody. In this video we're going to cover the Create a Quiz assignment in the Intro to Canvas course. I'm in my sandbox. I'm going to create a quiz and I'm going to do it using a question bank, and this has a lot of advantages that you will soon see. So if you go to quizzes in your course as an instructor, and then you can click the blue button that says plus quiz. And you'll see two tabs up here. That's important to note. So first we'll fill in the details and then we can add questions. Let's give this a name. I'm going to call it Chapter 1 Quiz. And my quizzes are really straightforward. If you wanted to, you could put instructions in here. But just know, if you put a time limit on this quiz or due dates, etc., all that information will show for the students so that you don't really have to put in the instructions. You have 30 minutes to complete this quiz. But if you had to add a video in here that they had to watch or any kind of other instructions or resources, you could put that in here as well. As we move down, you'll see quiz type. I'm going to leave it as graded quiz, but you do have other options if you click on this, including a practice quiz and a survey. And then the assignment group we're going to leave alone. You can always change this later. Options. Shuffle answers. This is good if you have multiple choice answers, A, B, C, D. For one student, A might be the correct answer, but on another student's quiz, if you check that box, it might give that student B, C. It'll mix it up for each student. You have to be careful if you select this option and you have any questions that say all of the above. That's not going to work because all of the above might be at the top if you shuffle the answers. Time limit. I recommend this if this is a high stakes quiz, or it's up to you. If it's just practice, if you just want them to take it over and over again and really learn the material, then you could leave it without the time limit. But I like to put a time limit in there. I'm only going to have 10 questions. I'm going to give them 20 minutes. Use your judgment on how much time you think they'll need to complete the quiz. Allow multiple attempts. I'm going to leave this alone, but if this were a practice quiz, or if this were something I wanted my students to be able to take more than once in order to reinforce the learning, you can absolutely check that box. There's some options here to keep the highest score. And then, of course, you can put in your number of attempts. If you want to give them 3 attempts, you could put a 3 in there. For me, I'm just going to give them the 1 attempt. So I'm going to uncheck this box, meaning they only have 1 attempt. And this box is probably the most important box for a number of reasons that also just gets neglected by most instructors, unfortunately. And this is one that can bite you. If you read this, it says, let students see their quiz responses. Incorrect questions will be marked in the student feedback. And then you'll also see below it, by default, let students see the correct answers is checked. And this sounds great. You know, every student wants to know, oh, which one did I get wrong, and what was the right answer? You know, that'll bug you if you take a quiz and you miss it. But unfortunately, if you leave this, and let's say you have the quiz open for a week, a student can take that quiz on the first day that it's open, and then as soon as they turn that quiz in, they're going to see the responses right away, and they're going to see the answer key right away. And in some cases, they will pass that key along to a friend in the class. For this reason, I always am mindful of this box here. If you want, you can make your own adjustments here. I like to show them the answers after the quiz is closed. So we'll come back to this box and I'll show you a little more how I do that. Show 1 question at a time. This is pretty self-explanatory. It's only going to show them 1 question on the page, and then they have to click next to get to the next question. If you're using Proctorio, you cannot select this. This will actually ruin the quiz. If you're using Proctorio, you cannot select 1 question at a time. But at any other situation, go ahead and select that if you'd like. Now we're going to go down to the bottom here, and this is where we put in our due dates. So if I want, it's now June. Let's say this is going to be open today until Monday, or until Sunday, I should say. The 7th is going to be my due date. And available from, we'll open it today, Monday. And this, by default, it makes it open at 12 a.m. So like right on the stroke of midnight, June 1st is when it opens. And June 7th, just before midnight, it's going to close. If you don't put an until date in here, then you're basically allowing students to submit this quiz after this due date. If you want to open it an extra day, just for those people that might have technical issues, you can put an until date that's a day later if you'd like. If you just want it to close when it closes, then basically you're going to copy this date and paste it in here. And if both these dates match, due and until, it's basically a hard due date where the quiz will close on that date and it's going to lock after that. So once this date's been established, you can then go back up to the box up here where it says let students see their quiz responses. Once you can show the correct answers once the quiz has closed for everyone. So I'm going to paste that date in as well. So as soon as this closes on midnight on the 7th, that's when students can see the answers. If for any reason you wanted to hide those answers before a final, I don't know if you would, but if you're reusing some of those questions and you don't want students going back into these old quizzes to review, you could put a date in here just in case, but I'm going to leave this alone. And these are some of the advanced features. This require an access code and filter IP addresses. These are advanced features. You can look up at those if you want. Just Google what those do. This requires them to do a password before they enter the test, mainly for like proctoring situations. Filter IP addresses, same thing. You want to make sure everyone's in the same room, maybe. That's why you would do that one, but we're not going to talk too much about that. So I've got all of these set. I could just hop over to the questions tab and start adding questions now, but just to be safe, I'm going to click save here. All right, so now that's saved. I'm going to go back in and edit it again here. Let's see. We'll click on questions tab because right now I've got all the details but no questions. And so here is where you can compose questions by clicking plus new question. You can group questions if you want, or you can find questions. Both of these you can link to a question bank if you have one in Canvas. Right now this is just an empty site, but I could have imported some quiz questions from a publisher or from an older Canvas class. You can actually bring banks over, but I'm going to show you how to create one from scratch. We're going to go over and click on quizzes again because it's a little tricky. And then what I'm going to do is in the upper right corner, I'm going to click those three dots and select Manage Question Banks. And here's where it says Course Question Banks. Of course, I don't have one yet. So I'll add a question bank with the plus Add Question Bank in the upper right there. I'll give it a name. Maybe I'll call this Chapter 1 Sandbox, just so I know which course it belongs to. This is just in my sandbox. And I'm going to click Enter or Return on my keyboard. Now I have a bank and it says no questions. So to add questions, we're going to actually click on the bank name. And here on the right hand side, we can add a question. So I'm going to click plus, and we're going to make 3 questions. The first one's going to be multiple choice. So I'll just say, who was the main character in Chapter 1? We'll pretend this is an English class or something. And here's where you would put in your choices. Canvas always makes the top choice the correct answer. You want to be careful if you're making a bunch of questions to mix this up. Even if you're going to shuffle answers later on, just in case you forget to shuffle the answers, it's important to not have every answer correct to be the first choice, right? So I'm just going to make this C for now. The correct answer maybe is Peter Pan, I don't know. And then we can have possible answers, Jim, and then we can have Lisa, right? And maybe down here we can have Super Mario, right? And then if you want, you can also get even deeper in here. You have these little boxes, these pink and green boxes. If you wanted to, you can click on these boxes, and that lets you write some feedback. So if the student chooses the correct answer, you can say yes, if you want to give them a nice comment. And then after you've written the comment, you go to the right corner and click done. And you can do those for incorrect answers as well. You can put in negative feedback or say, no, Jim was only in chapter 3 or something like that, whatever you want. So that's my first question. It's multiple choice. If I wanted to only have it A, B, and C, or 1, 2, 3, you can click on the little trash bin to the right of a distractor. That's what they call these extra ones. So if I only wanted 3, I would hit this trash bin. And then if I wanted to add more, you can put add another answer. The main thing is you just don't want to leave one of these as blank, because that's going to really confuse the student and make the question look kind of wrong. Okay, so now that we're done with our answers and feedback, we can click on the blue Update Question button. And now we've got one question inside of our bank, and we can create another one. So I'm going to go to Add Question, and this one I'm going to change it. It's not going to be multiple choice. I can change it to true false here. And then so for a true false, it could be anything. You just type it in here, and then you'll see at the bottom you have true and false. And if the answer is false, you hover your mouse next to false and click on that arrow, and that would make false the correct answer. And again, you have these little boxes to add feedback to. All right, and we can click Update Question. So now we got a true false, and we'll add one more. And this one, I'm going to click on the box, and this is going to be an essay question. You'll see you have a lot of different options here you can play around with in your sandbox, but I'm going to do an essay question. And here's just gonna, this is where you would type your instructions, and then down at the bottom you click Update Question. You'll notice there's no distractors because it's an essay question. They'll get a text box that they can write into. So there's our 3 questions in our bank, and now we want to add these or some of these to an actual quiz. We're going to go back to quizzes, and we can click on our quiz that we've created. Click on Edit, and now we can go to the Questions tab. And I could have created those questions right in the quiz, but then I wouldn't be able to reuse them in a different quiz. And that's why I like creating questions in a bank first, because then you have a lot more flexibility. You can bring those questions into any course, any quiz. So that's what I like. And I also like being able to do a random draw. So let's say I had 50 questions in that bank. I could draw 10 out of that bank, and then each student would have a different test because it would just randomly draw 10 questions out of 50 for everyone's quiz. So to do that, I'm going to click on this plus new question group. And here is where you can select how many questions to bring over. That bank has 3 questions in it. I'm just going to bring 2 over just as a demo. And then we will click on Link to Question Bank. And there's the bank, pops up here. So I'll click on the name of the bank, Chapter 1 Sandbox. Click Select Bank. And you will see it says questions will be pulled from the bank, Chapter 1 Sandbox Bank. Now, you want to be careful here. You have to click on this blue button first to create the group. If I just click Save, it's not going to, this won't stick. So we're going to click on Create Group first. And now we can click Save or Save and Publish if we're ready. And that's what I can do. I'm going to publish this. So that's how I create a quiz using a question bank. Thanks for watching.